A young virgin sold the only ring left by her father to try to save her mother's life. But the buyer was a dark millionaire who wanted much more than gold. If you love love and romance stories, watch until the end, subscribe to this channel, and leave a comment telling us where you're listening from. Stay tuned.
The sound of cars on Fifth Avenue blended with the rain pattering against the foggy bus window. Emma pressed her forehead against the cold glass, watching as the city lights transformed into golden and red blurs. Her fingers trembled as she clutched the synthetic leather purse against her chest, feeling inside it the weight of a small wooden box that held her last hope. 22 years of life, and she already felt old, tired. The navy blue uniform from the coffee shop where she worked still carried the smell of roasted beans and sour milk, a constant reminder of her 14-hour days serving hurried businessmen who barely looked her in the eyes. But today was different. Today she needed to be brave. Her mother had been hospitalized for 3 days at Memorial Hospital. Pancreatic cancer, advanced stage. The doctor's words echoed in her mind like a death sentence. We need to start treatment. Immediately. Chemotherapy, radiation therapy, maybe surgery. It's going to be expensive, but it's her only chance. Emma got off the bus in the Upper East Side, where the streets were clean and well-maintained trees cast gentle shadows on the sidewalks. Her worn-out sneakers made noise on the wet ground as she walked toward the most expensive jewelry store in the area. She had researched for hours online, looking for the place that would pay the best price for her father's ring. The ring. Her only real inheritance. An antique piece of yellow gold with an emerald in the center, surrounded by small diamonds that sparkled like crystallized tears. Her father had received it from his grandfather, who in turn had inherited it from previous generations. It was her family history summarized in 15 grams of precious metal. "This ring will save you one day, my flower," he had said, still in the hospital after the accident at the factory. His calloused hands trembled as he gave the jewelry to her. "Don't sell it for vanity. Sell it only to survive." She was 11 when he died. Now, at 22, she finally understood the weight of those words. The jewelry store door opened with a soft electronic sound. The environment was intimidating. White marble on the floor, LED lights that made everything shine, showcases with jewelry that cost more than she earned in a year. The manager, a middle-aged man with golden glasses, looked her up and down with barely disguised contempt. "May I help you?" he asked as if he were doing her a favor. Emma took a deep breath and removed the little box from her purse. "I would like to sell this ring." The man took the piece with fat fingers, analyzing it under a magnifying glass with a bored expression. After a few eternal minutes, he sighed. "It's an antique piece, but the gold isn't the ideal purity. The emerald has some inclusions. I can offer 15,000. The world spun around Emma. She had done her research. That ring was worth at least $50,000. It was her only chance to save her mother. "Please," she whispered, feeling tears burning her eyes. "I know it's worth more. My mother is dying. I need this money for her treatment." The manager shrugged, indifferent to the desperation in her voice. "I'm sorry, but that's what I can offer. Either you accept it or what?" The voice came from behind her, deep and controlled like distant thunder. Emma turned and felt the air leave her lungs. The man who had just entered was different from anyone she had ever seen. Tall, elegant, wearing a grey suit that seemed to have been sewn directly onto his body. Black hair combed back, dark eyes. That seemed capable of piercing her soul. When he approached, she smelled the woody perfume emanating from him, an expensive fragrance that spoke of power and absolute control. "Mr. Blake," the manager stammered, suddenly nervous. "We weren't expecting you today." "Clearly," the man responded without taking his eyes off Emma. "Step aside. I'll take over from here." The manager ran off, leaving them alone in the silent store. Alexander Blake extended his hand, and Emma, hypnotized, gave him the ring. He examined it with expert attention, turning it between his long, well-groomed fingers. Colombian emerald, 18-karat gold, good quality diamonds, worth at least 80,000 in the current market. Emma felt her heart race. "So you would buy it for that amount?" Alexander stared at her for long seconds that seemed like hours. There was something in his eyes that frightened and attracted her at the same time. A hunger, a need she couldn't decipher. "I can pay much more than that," he said slowly, "but I have a different proposal for you." The rain continued to beat against the windows, creating a hypnotic rhythm that filled the heavy silence between them. Emma knew deep in her soul that her life was about to change forever. "What kind of proposal?" Emma asked, her voice coming out weaker than she would have liked. There was something in the way Alexander looked at her that made her stomach contract, as if he could see through her simple clothes, through her skin, straight to her deepest fears. Alexander walked to the main showcase, his hands crossed behind his back. Even in profile, he radiated an authority that made the store's air seem heavier. "You need money quickly, a lot of money for your mother." It wasn't a question. It was a cold statement, as if he had access to the most intimate files of her life. "How do you know?" "I know many things," he replied, finally turning to face her again. "I know you work 16 hours a day at that coffee shop on Madison Avenue. I know you study nursing at night. I know you have a boyfriend named Ethan, a naive boy who believes love conquers all." Emma's blood froze. "You investigated me?" I don't do business without knowing all the variables involved." Alexander approached her, his steps echoing on the marble. "And you, Emma Sanders, have just become very interesting to me." Her full name coming from his lips sounded like a caress and a threat at the same time. She instinctively backed away, but her back hit the showcase behind her. She was cornered. "I can pay $200,000 for your ring," he said, stopping just a meter away. "Enough money to save your mother, pay off your debts, and still have enough left for you to start a new life." Emma's heart raced. $200,000. It was more money than she dreamed of seeing in her entire life. It would be complete salvation, not just for her mother, but for herself. "But," continued Alexander, his voice dropping a tone, "the payment won't be just for the ring." "Then for what?" He smiled for the first time, and the smile didn't reach his eyes. It was cold, calculating, loaded with a dangerous sensuality that made something stir in Emma's lower abdomen, despite all the fear she felt. "For one night. With me. No limits, no questions, no resistance." The words hit Emma like a punch to the stomach. The floor seemed to disappear beneath her feet. She looked at the man in front of her, trying to process what she had just heard. He was proposing. "This couldn't be real. Are you serious?" "I would never joke about something like this." Alexander's eyes darkened even more. "One night, Emma, just one night where you'll be completely mine. In exchange, your mother lives, your debts disappear, and you can forget I exist." Emma's mind panicked. Images tumbled in her head, her mother pale in the hospital bed, tubes connected to her fragile arms, the doctor talking about time they didn't have. Then Ethan, his sweet and confident face when he said he would find a way to help. Her parents, honest workers who always taught about dignity and character. I have a boyfriend," she stammered. "I know, and that makes everything even more interesting." The coldness in his voice was cutting. Emma felt nausea rising in her throat. "You're sick." "I'm pragmatic." Alexander took a card from the inside pocket of his jacket. "This is the address of my apartment. If you accept, be there. Tonight at 8. The money will be transferred to your account the moment you walk through the door." Emma took the card with trembling hands. The paper was thick, expensive, with embossed golden letters. An address in the Upper East Side, certainly one of the most expensive buildings in the city. "And if I don't accept?" "Then I buy your ring. For $80,000 as initially promised. You go back to your life, hope it's enough for your mother's treatment, and pray she gets lucky." He paused, letting the weight of the words hang in the air. "But we both know that 80,000 won't be enough, don't we?" Emma closed her eyes, feeling hot tears stream down her face. He was right. The doctor had been clear. The treatment would cost at least $150,000 with no guarantees. And that was without counting the medications, the exams, the subsequent physical therapy sessions. "Why me?" she whispered. "You can have any woman you want." Alexander moved closer, so close that she could feel the heat emanating from his body. "Because I want you. Because there's something about you that awakens in me a hunger I haven't felt in a long time. And because," he lightly touched her face, a gentle touch that contrasted with the coldness of his words, "you are pure, and I like to corrupt pure things." His touch burned her skin like a hot iron. Emma turned her face away but couldn't move away completely. She was trapped between the showcase and his body, trapped between her conscience and desperation. "I need to think." "You have until 8 tonight," he said, backing away. "After that, the offer expires." Alexander took the ring from her hand and put it in his pocket. "I'll keep this as a guarantee. If you come, it will be returned along with the payment. If you don't come—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The message was clear. Emma ran out of the jewelry store, the card still clutched in her hand. The rain had stopped, but she didn't notice. Her mind was a whirlwind of desperate thoughts, fear, and a treacherous excitement that left her even more confused. When she arrived at the hospital, her mother was awake, smiling weakly. "How are you, my daughter? Did you manage to solve the money problem?" Emma looked at that thin face, at the eyes still full of love despite the pain, and felt her heart break. "I'm still trying, Mom. But everything will be all right." The apartment that Emma shared with her mother in the Bronx never seemed so small and cramped. She sat on the twin bed that had been hers since she was 15, staring at the golden card between her fingers. 7:30 at night. 30 minutes to make the decision that would change her life forever. Her cell phone rang and Ethan's name appeared on the screen. She hesitated before answering. "Hi, love. How was it at the jewelry store? Did you get a good price for the—" "Ring?" His voice was full of genuine hope and affection. Ethan always believed everything would work out in the end. It was one of the reasons she loved him, and also one of the reasons she sometimes wanted to scream at him. The world wasn't as kind as he believed. "I'm still negotiating," she lied, hating herself for it. "Emma, I talked to my dad today. He said he can get a loan at his bank. It won't be easy, but if we combine the money from the ring with the loan—" "Ethan." "No?" She closed her eyes, feeling the weight of guilt crushing her chest. "You can't put your family at risk because of my mother. Your mother is family to me too when we get married. And if we don't get married?" The words came out before she could control them. "And if I'm not the person you think I am?" There was silence on the other end of the line. When Ethan spoke again, his voice was confused, hurt. "Emma, what's going on? You're scaring me." She wanted to tell him everything. She wanted to confide about the obscene proposal, about the desperation that was eating her from inside, about how she was considering doing something that would make her hate her own reflection in the mirror. But she couldn't. Ethan wouldn't understand. He would try to stop her, try to be the hero and end up getting hurt in the process. "I'm just tired. We'll talk tomorrow, okay? Emma, I love you. Remember that, no matter what happens." The line went dead. She looked at the phone, then at the card, then at the photo of her mother and father on the bedside table. They were young in the photo, smiling on a sunny day in Central Park. Happy, naive. They didn't yet know that life would come, like a hurricane to destroy everything they had built. 8:15 at night. She had missed the opportunity, or perhaps she had saved herself. The phone rang again, unknown number. "You're late." Alexander's voice was calm, but there was a veiled threat behind the tranquility. I'm not coming. Your mother had a cardiac arrest 20 minutes ago. She's in the ICU now. The doctors say her condition deteriorated rapidly." The world stopped. Emma felt as if she had been shot in the chest. "How do you know? How can you know that?" "I know everything, Emma. And I know that if she doesn't start treatment in the next 48 hours, there will be nothing more that can be done." She ran to the hospital, her heart beating so hard it felt like it would explode. Her mother was connected to machines, unconscious, paler than ever. The doctor confirmed everything. The situation was critical. "Doctor, if she starts treatment, now today, what are the chances?" "With proper treatment, maybe 60%, but we need to act immediately. And the problem is the money, I know. Emma left the hospital with shaky legs. She called a taxi and gave the address that was engraved on the golden card. During the journey, she tried to convince herself she was doing the right thing. It was just one night. One night in exchange for her mother's life. Women did this every day for much smaller reasons. The building was everything she had imagined. Imposing, modern, with a marble lobby and security guards in suits. The doorman looked at her suspiciously until she mentioned Alexander Blake's name. Then magically she became a welcome person. The elevator rose silently to the top floor. Penthouse duplex, of course. When the doors opened, she was directly in the entrance hall of the apartment. There were no corridors, no other doors, just his. Alexander was waiting for her wearing a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his, elbows and dark dress pants. He was more casual than at the jewelry store, but still radiated power. He had a glass of whiskey in his hand and was watching her like a predator observes its prey before attacking. "You came," he said, and there was a dangerous satisfaction in his voice. "My mother is dying." "I know. The money has already been transferred to your account." He took his cell phone from his pocket and showed the screen to her. The proof was there, $200,000 deposited in her name. "You can check." Emma looked at her own cell phone. The bank notification was there. The money was real. Her mother was saved, and now she belonged to him. The apartment was a testament to wealth without ostentation. Designer furniture, artwork on the walls, a panoramic view of New York that made the city seem like an ocean of lights. Everything was perfect, cold, controlled like him. "Drink this," Alexander said, offering her a glass of red wine. "It will help you relax." "I don't drink." "Today you do." It wasn't a request. She accepted the glass and took a sip. The wine was expensive, sweet and bitter at the same time, like everything in her life at that moment. "Why do you do this?" she asked. "You have money, power, you can have any woman. Why do you need to buy?" Alexander smiled, but it was a smile without humor. "Because when you buy, you're certain the person is completely yours. There's no pretense, no games, no possibility of rejection. There's just the raw reality of the deal." He approached her, took the glass from her hands, and placed it on the coffee table. "And because I like control. I like knowing that you're here not because you love me, not because you desire me, but because I pay for it. It's more honest than any relationship I've ever had." "That's sick." "It's realistic." Alexander touched her face again, and this time she didn't pull away. "Your boyfriend Ethan says he loves you, but where is he now? I who am a stranger am saving your mother. Which of us really cares about you?" His words were like poison, infiltrating her deepest insecurities. Emma closed, her eyes trying not to think, trying just to survive the next few hours. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. "Everything," he answered, and led her by the hand toward the bedroom. Alexander's bedroom was an extension of his personality, controlled, luxurious, and intimidating. The king-size bed dominated the space, covered with black, silk sheets that seemed to absorb the light from strategically positioned lamps. Large floor-to-ceiling windows offered a spectacular view of the city, but at that moment, Emma could only see her own reflection in the dark glass, pale and frightened. "You're trembling," Alexander observed, closing the door behind them. The sound of the lock seemed to echo like a final sentence. "I'm cold," she lied. He approached from behind, his hands resting on her shoulders. The touch was firm, possessive, and she could feel the heat of his body through the thin shirt she wore. "You can stop pretending, Emma. We both know why you're here." She turned to face him, trying to find some trace of humanity in those dark eyes. "And you can stop acting as if this is normal, as if buying a woman is something acceptable." "Normal?" He laughed, but there was no joy in the sound. "Nothing in my life is normal. Do you think I wake up every day thinking about how to destroy innocent people? Do you think I take pleasure in seeing tears in your eyes? Then why are you doing this?" Alexander moved away from her, walking toward the window. For a moment his reflection merged with the city lights, making him seem even more unreal. Because it's the only thing I know how to do. Control. Possess. Take what I want before someone takes it from me. There was something broken in his voice, a crack in the armor he wore. Emma felt a pang of something dangerous growing in her chest, not pity but understanding, recognition of a familiar pain. "Who hurt you?" she asked softly. He turned abruptly, his eyes flaring. "Don't try to analyze me, don't try to fix me. You're not here for that. Then what am I here for? Because if it's just sex you want, there are much easier ways to get it." Alexander approached again, this time more slowly, like a feline circling its prey. "You're here because I saw something in you that belongs to me, something that hasn't yet been touched by the rot of this world, and I want to be the first to corrupt it." His words hit her like slaps, but they also awakened something dark within her, a morbid curiosity about what he saw, about what he wanted. "And after you corrupt me, possess me, break me, what happens to me?" "You go back to your life, marry your naive boyfriend, take care of your mother, finish college, and try to forget that a part of you liked what happened here." The last sentence was said so low that she almost didn't hear it, but she did, and the truth in it hit her like lightning, because as much as she tried to deny it, there was indeed a part of her that was curious, that was excited by the danger, by the transgression. "You're diabolical," she whispered. "I'm realistic." He extended his hand to her. "You can leave now. Keep the money. Save your mother. Keep your conscience clean. I won't chase you. I won't blackmail you. But if you stay, if you take this step, you'll never be the same person again." Emma looked at the extended hand as if it were a venomous snake. She knew she should run, scream, do anything but accept. But the image of her mother in the hospital, fragile and dependent on her decision, weighed more than any moral principle. Slowly, she placed her hand in his. Alexander smiled, and for the first time the smile reached his eyes. But it wasn't a gentle smile. It was the smile of someone who had just won a very important game. He pulled her close, his hands rising to frame her face. "You will obey me, in everything. No questions, no resistance. Understood?" She nodded, unable to speak. "I want to hear. You say it. I will obey. Good girl." He kissed her forehead, an almost tender gesture that contrasted with the coldness of his words. "Take off your clothes." Emma's hands trembled as she unbuttoned her blouse. Each piece that fell to the floor seemed to take a piece of her dignity with it. But there was also something liberating about surrendering completely, about not having to make decisions, about simply existing as an object of someone's desire. When she stood completely naked before him, Alexander observed her as if she were a rare work of art. His eyes traveled over every curve, every mark, every imperfection, with an intensity that made her feel more exposed than she had ever felt. "You're more beautiful than I imagined," he murmured, more to himself than to her. "Now." "You," she said, surprising herself with her own courage. He raised an eyebrow. "Already giving me orders?" "You said this was a deal. Deals work both ways." For a moment she thought he would be angry, but then he laughed, a genuine laugh, almost admiring. "You have fire inside you, don't you? Beneath all that fragility, there's a strong woman." He began to undress slowly, unhurriedly, knowing she was watching every movement. His body was perfect as expected, defined muscles without exaggeration, tanned skin, small scars that told stories she would never know. When they stood naked before each other, the air in the room seemed charged with electricity. Alexander approached, his hands touching her face with a delicacy that surprised her. "Last chance," he whispered against her lips. "After this, there's no going back." Instead of answering, Emma leaned in and kissed him. It was a desperate kiss, full of anger, fear, desire, and self-destruction. And when he responded, deepening the kiss and pulling her against his body, she knew she had crossed a line from which she would never return. His hands explored her body with a hunger that was almost violent but also reverent, as if she was something precious that he wanted to break and preserve at the same time. And when he finally laid her on the bed, covering her body with his, Emma closed her eyes and let the darkness take her to a place where right and wrong didn't exist, only sensation and need. In that moment, she was no longer the dedicated daughter, the faithful girlfriend, the hard-working student. She was just a woman discovering aspects of herself she never knew existed. Emma woke to sunlight flooding the room through the huge windows. For a moment, she forgot where she was, the silk sheet against her naked skin, the mattress too soft, the absolute silence so different from the constant noise of her neighborhood. Then the memory returned like an avalanche, bringing with it a complex mixture of shame, guilt, and something more disturbing that she didn't want to name. Alexander wasn't in bed. She could hear him moving in another room, the sound of cups being handled, the aroma of expensive coffee reaching her. She sat up slowly, pulling the sheet to cover her body, and looked around for her clothes. They were neatly folded on a leather armchair, as if someone had come during the night to organize them. He appeared at the bedroom door carrying a tray with coffee, fruit, and bread. He was dressed casually, dark jeans and a white t-shirt that molded his torso in an almost criminal way. His hair was slightly disheveled, and there was something different in his expression, less controlled, more human. "Good morning," he said, placing the tray on the bed beside her. "I thought you might be hungry." Emma observed him with suspicion. "Why are you being kind?" "Who said I'm being kind?" He sat on the edge of the bed, his eyes scanning her face. "Maybe I just want you to have energy for what comes next." A shiver ran down her spine. "Our deal was for one night. The night is over." "Technically, you're right." Alexander picked a grape from the tray and put it in his mouth, chewing slowly. "But there's a small problem that arose during the night." Emma's heart accelerated. "What problem?" He picked up a tablet from the side table and handed it to her. On the screen, an online newspaper article. Businessman Ethan Miller, 24, was found unconscious in his apartment after an apparent overdose of medication. He is hospitalized in serious condition at Mount Sinai Hospital. The world spun around Emma. The tablet fell from her hands, hitting the floor with a dull thud. "No, this isn't real. Ethan wouldn't use drugs. He doesn't even drink." "Of course he wouldn't." Alexander retrieved the tablet, his voice maintaining the same casual tone. "Someone put the medications in his drink last night." "You," the word came out like a roar from her throat, "you did this to him." "I didn't do anything, but I know who did." Emma tried to stand up, but her legs failed. Reality was crumbling around her. "Why? Why would you do this? Our deal didn't involve hurting anyone." "You're right. Our deal didn't involve this." Alexander leaned forward, his eyes fixed on her. "But it seems our little encounter caught the attention of people I would prefer to remain ignorant of my existence." "What are you talking about?" Alexander sighed, running his hands through his hair. For a moment he looked tired, almost vulnerable. "I have a half-brother, Vincent, my father's illegitimate son with one of his mistresses. We grew up hating each other, competing for scraps of attention from a man who didn't care about either of us." He stood up, walking to the window. "When my father died, he left everything to me. Vincent got practically nothing. Since then, he's done everything to destroy me, sabotages my business, tries to steal my clients, spreads rumors about my personal life. And what does that have to do with me, with Ethan? Vincent has people watching me constantly. When you came here yesterday, he found out and decided you would be a perfect way to get to me." Alexander turned to her, and there was something dangerous in his eyes. "He sent someone to drug your boyfriend. A message for me and for you." Emma felt bile rising in her throat. "What message?" "That he can target anyone who gets close to me. Your boyfriend today, your mother tomorrow, you after that. I need to go to the hospital. I need to see Ethan." "You can't." Alexander came back near the bed, his voice firm. "Vincent has people there too. If you show up, you'll be kidnapped before you even reach his room. So what do I do? Stay here as your prisoner while the people I love suffer because of me? You stay here while I resolve this." He sat on the bed again, his hands taking hers. "Vincent made a mistake by involving innocent third parties. This gives me justification to do things I normally wouldn't do." There was something frightening in Alexander's calm, a coldness that suggested imminent violence. "What are you going to do?" "What I should have done a long time ago." Emma pulled her hands away from his. "I don't want anyone to get hurt because of me. You've caused enough damage." "You didn't cause anything. I brought you into my world." Alexander touched her face, and for the first time the touch seemed genuinely affectionate. "And now I have to protect you." "You don't owe me protection. Our deal is over." "Our deal is changed," he leaned in, his lips touching her forehead, "because I discovered that one night isn't enough, that maybe nothing is enough when it comes to you." Emma's heart beat harder, but not from fear. It was something more complex, more dangerous. "Alexander, I know I should let you go. I know it would be the right thing. But I've discovered I'm not capable of doing the right thing when it comes to you." He kissed her cheek, then the corner of her mouth. "You've awakened something in me that I thought was dead. This is just obsession. You don't really know me. Then give me the chance to know you." Alexander pulled away to look into her eyes. "Stay with me. Not as a commercial transaction, but as something real." Emma laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. "Real? You think anything between us can be real after how it started? You bought me, Alexander. You bought my body as if I were merchandise." "I know, and I'll carry that guilt forever." There was genuine pain in his voice. "But what I felt last night, what I feel now, that has no price. That can't be bought." "And Ethan? And my mother and my life?" "Ethan will recover. I have the best doctors taking care of him, and he won't even know what happened. Your mother is receiving the best treatment possible. And your life—" He hesitated. "Your life can be anything you want it to be." Emma closed her eyes, trying to think clearly. But it was impossible. Everything was confused, distorted. Her emotions were a tangle of desire, anger, fear, and something she was afraid to name. "I need to see my mother." "I can arrange that, but you can't go out alone. Vincent will be waiting." "Then come with me." Alexander smiled, and this time, the smile was genuine. "As you wish." As she got dressed, Emma tried to understand what was happening to her. Why wasn't she running? Why didn't the idea of staying close to Alexander, despite everything, frighten her as much as it should? And why, when he touched her, did her body respond in ways her mind rejected? Maybe he was right. Maybe she would never be the same person again. Memorial Hospital never seemed so different to Emma's eyes. This time, she didn't arrive on a crowded bus, with simple clothes and a desperate expression on her face. She arrived in an armored car, accompanied by Alexander and 2 discreet security guards, wearing expensive clothes he had bought for her during the morning. Her mother was awake when they entered the room, and the relief in her eyes was immediate. But soon after came confusion upon seeing the elegant man accompanying her daughter. "Emma, my daughter, I thought you wouldn't come today. And who is this gentleman?" Emma hesitated, searching for the right words. "Mom, this is Alexander. He helped me with the money for your treatment." The woman looked at Alexander with curiosity and gratitude. "Thank you very much, sir. I don't know how we'll pay." "You don't need to pay anything, Mrs. Sanders," Alexander said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "Emma is special to me. Taking care of her and the people she loves is a privilege." Emma stared at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. There was something different about him when he spoke to her mother, a softness she didn't know existed. "Are you two dating?" Mrs. Sanders asked, and Emma felt the blood rush to her face. "It's complicated, Mom." "Love is always complicated, daughter," the woman smiled weakly. "The important thing is that you take care of each other. And Alexander," she looked directly at him, "take good care of my girl. She's suffered too much in life." "You can be sure of that," Alexander replied, and there was a promise in his words that made Emma's heart race. They spent 2 hours at the hospital. Alexander remained by Emma's side the entire time, observing how she cared for her mother, with a dedication that seemed to impress him. When they left, he was silent. "Are you okay?" she asked in the car. "You really love her," he said, more as a statement than a question. Of course I love her. She's my mother. I never had that. Alexander looked out the window, lost in thought. My mother abandoned me when I was 8 years old, left a note saying she couldn't take care of me anymore and disappeared. My father, well, he only remembered I existed when he needed someone to blame for his failures. Emma felt a pang of compassion. I'm sorry. You don't need to be, I'm just trying to explain why. He stopped as if the words were difficult to find. Why I don't know how to love someone without wanting to control them completely. Alexander. When I saw you taking care of your mother, I saw something I've always wanted to have. A real connection, unconditional love. He looked at her, and I realized that maybe I've done everything wrong with you from the beginning. Before Emma could respond, Alexander's phone rang. He answered with a tense expression. Yes? When? Where? His voice grew harder with each word. Understood. Double the security. Now. What happened? Emma asked when he hung up. Vincent made his first real move. Alexander ordered the driver to change direction. He kidnapped 3 employees from my company, wants a meeting with me in exchange for their lives. That's an obvious trap. Of course it is, but I can't let innocent people die because of me. He took her hand. I'm going to leave you in a safe place. No. The word came out before she thought. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. Alexander, if Vincent really wants to hurt you through me, he'll find me anyway. At least if I'm with you, you can protect me. He studied her face for long seconds. Why do you want to come? After everything that happened, why aren't you trying to run away from me? It was a fair question, and Emma wasn't sure of the answer. Because I think I understand you, and because, as crazy as it sounds, I trust you. You shouldn't trust me. Maybe not, but I do. Alexander closed his eyes, as if fighting an internal battle. If you come, you'll have to do exactly as I say. No questions. I agree. And Emma? He opened his eyes and she saw fear in them. Real fear. If something goes wrong, if I tell you to run, you run. Don't look back. Don't try to help me. Just run. Alexander. Promise. I promise. The meeting location was an abandoned warehouse in the industrial zone. Too classic not to be a trap, but they had no choice. Alexander had brought his own men, but Vincent would certainly have his as well. Remember what we discussed, Alexander said as they approached the building. You stay behind me at all times. The warehouse was dark, illuminated only by a few weak lamps hanging from the high ceiling. Vincent was waiting for them in the center of the space, surrounded by 6 armed men. He was younger than Alexander, but there was a cruelty in his eyes that made Emma shiver. Alexander, my dear brother, Vincent smiled, and the smile was pure evil. Good that you came and brought your new obsession. Where are my employees? Safe. For now. Vincent walked up to them, his eyes fixed on Emma. But first, I want to get to know better the woman who managed to awaken feelings in my brother's ice-cold heart. Don't come near her, Alexander said, his voice loaded with threat. Or what, you'll kill me? Vincent laughed. We both know you don't have the courage for that. You've always been the good boy in the family. You don't know me as well as... You think? No, then prove it. Vincent drew a gun and pointed it at Emma. Kill me or I kill her. Time seemed to stop. Emma saw Alexander tense, saw his men prepare their weapons, saw Vincent smile like a madman, and in that moment she understood that her life had become something much bigger and more dangerous than she had ever imagined. You have 10 seconds, Vincent said, and began to count. It was then that Emma realized that regardless of how everything had started, she was completely connected to this complex and dangerous man beside her, and that if one of them died here, the other would never be complete again. 5 and 4 and 3. Time dragged like molasses as Vincent continued the countdown. Emma could hear her own heart beating in her ears, a deafening sound that seemed to echo through the empty warehouse. Alexander was motionless beside her, but she could feel the tension radiating from him like heat. 2. That's when everything happened at once. Alexander threw himself forward, Emma instinctively ducked down, and the sound of gunshots echoed through the warehouse like deadly fireworks. But it wasn't Alexander who shot first. It was his men, strategically positioned. In the shadows whom Vincent hadn't noticed, chaos ensued. Screams, more shots, the sound of bodies falling on the concrete floor. Emma was crouched behind some old boxes, trying to make herself invisible, when a strong hand pulled her. "Let's go now," Alexander shouted, dragging her toward a side door that she hadn't even noticed. They ran through the dark corridors of the warehouse, the sounds of battle echoing behind them. Alexander knew the way. Obviously, he had studied the location before coming, always thinking 3 steps ahead, always in control, even when everything seemed to be crumbling. "Your employees," Emma shouted as they ran. "You can't leave them." "My men will take care of that," he responded, not slowing down. "My priority right now is you." They left the warehouse through an emergency exit that led to a dark alley. A car was waiting for them, the engine already running. Alexander pushed her inside and shouted instructions to the driver before even closing the door. "Where are we going?" Emma asked, still trying to process everything that had happened. "Away from here. Vincent may have survived, and if he did, he'll be furious. You planned all this. It wasn't a question." Alexander looked at her, and for the first time since they met, she saw something like pride in his eyes. "I said I would do anything to protect you. And if your men can't save the employees, they will. I wouldn't have left them if I wasn't." "Sure." The car stopped in front of a building Emma didn't recognize. It wasn't Alexander's apartment. It was something smaller, more discreet, but still elegant. "Safe house," Alexander explained, helping her out of the car. "Nobody knows about this place." The apartment was modern but cozy, with comfortable furniture and a view of a quiet park. Alexander went straight to a bar in the corner of the room and poured himself a whiskey, his hands trembling slightly. The first time Emma had seen him not completely in control. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I am. Are you?" "I think so." She sat on the sofa, still processing the events of the night. "Alexander, what's going to happen now?" He took a sip of whiskey before answering. "Vincent will hide for a while, regroup, plan his next move. And when he comes back, he'll be even more dangerous. And us?" "Us?" Alexander turned to look at her. "There is no us, Emma. There's you, who deserves a normal and safe life. And there's me, who only brings danger to anyone who gets close." "It's a little late for that kind of thinking, don't you think?" Alexander laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. "You're right. I dragged you into my world, and now you're marked. Vincent will never stop using you to get to me. So what are you suggesting? That you disappear. New identity, new life, far from here. I can arrange that." Emma stared at him, incredulous. "You want me to abandon everything? My mother, my life. Ethan is safe now. And your mother can be transferred to a private hospital in another city with all the assistance she needs. You can continue your studies, have a career, be happy. And you? I'll take care of my war with Vincent. And maybe, when it's all over, if we both survive." "If we both survive what?" Alexander approached her, kneeling beside the sofa to be at eye level with her. "Maybe I'll have learned to love someone without wanting to possess them completely. Maybe I'll have become the kind of man you deserve." His words hit her like a punch to the stomach, not from pain but from understanding. He was offering to let her go out of love. For the first time since they met, he was putting her well-being above his own desires. "And if I don't want to go?" "Emma, what if I want to stay and fight by your side?" "You don't understand what you're saying. This isn't a romantic movie. People really die. You almost died today. But I didn't, and you saved me. And what if next time I can't save you?" Emma held his face between her hands, forcing him to look into her eyes. "Alexander, since my father died, I've lived in fear. Fear of not being able to take care of my mother, fear of not being strong enough, fear of loving someone and losing them. But with you, even in the middle of all this chaos, I feel more alive than I've ever felt. This isn't love, Emma. It's adrenaline. Isn't it? She leaned in and kissed him softly. Then why can't I imagine my life without you? Why does the idea of you facing Vincent alone terrify me more than any danger I might face by your side? Alexander closed his eyes, resting his forehead against hers. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Alexander's phone rang, interrupting the moment. He answered reluctantly. Yes? I understand. And Vincent? Damn. How many? All right, maintain position. When he hung up, his expression was somber. What happened? Emma asked. My men managed to save the employees. They're all alive and safe. That's good, isn't it? Vincent escaped and killed 3 of my men before fleeing. Alexander, he left a message, said this is just beginning and that next time he won't be so gentle. Emma felt a shiver run down her spine, but it wasn't from fear. It was from determination. Then we'll have to be ready for him. Emma, you don't understand it. I understand perfectly. Vincent is dangerous, vindictive, and won't stop until he destroys us. And you alone can't beat him. She stood up, walking to the window. But maybe the 2 of us together can. Alexander observed her for a long moment. You really want to do this? Jump head first into my war? If the only way for us to have a future together is by going through this war, then yes. And if we don't survive? Emma turned to him, and there was something fierce in her eyes. Then at least we'll die fighting for something worth it. The next 3 days passed like a blur of preparation and tension. Alexander transformed the safe house into a true operations center, with men constantly coming and going, maps spread across the living room table, and conversations in codes that Emma gradually began to understand. She was no longer just the woman he wanted to protect. Alexander included her in discussions, asked for her opinion, explained the plans. It was as if he finally saw her as a real partner, not just as a precious possession. Vincent has 3 main bases in the city, Alexander explained, pointing to markings on the map. One at the port, where he moves illegal goods, one in the key west zone where his front offices are, and one in the mountains, a mansion where he's probably hiding now. Why are you sure he's in the mountains? Emma asked. Because it's the most defensible place, and because it's where our father used to take us when we were children. Alexander's voice carried an old bitterness. He always thought that place was impenetrable. Emma studied the map, noticing something that Alexander's men seemed to have missed. There's a secondary road here. It goes behind the property. It's very steep, almost impossible to climb by car. But not on foot. And if you attack from the front, drawing all the attention, a small person could climb up the back unnoticed. Alexander stared at her. Don't even think about it. Alexander, I'm small, agile, and Vincent won't be expecting me. I can enter the house and do what? You're not trained for this, Emma. You don't know how to use weapons. You don't know how to fight. But I know how to hide. I spent my entire childhood hiding from rent collectors and dangerous men in my neighborhood. She touched his arm. I can be your eyes inside. Tell you where Vincent is, how many men he has with him. It's too risky. All of this is too risky, but it's our best chance. Marcus, Alexander's right-hand man, cleared his throat. Boss, the girl is right. Vincent will be expecting a frontal attack. He won't imagine we'd send someone from behind. Alexander remained silent for long minutes, studying the map and clearly fighting an internal battle. Finally, he sighed. If we do this, you follow my orders to the letter. No improvising. No trying to be a hero. You go in, collect information, get out. I agree. And if something goes wrong, if you're discovered, you run. You don't try to warn me. You don't try to help. You just run and don't stop until you're safe. Alexander. Promise. Emma. It's the only way I'll let you do this. She nodded, although they both knew that when the time came, she probably wouldn't be able to simply abandon him. The next night, everyone was in position. Alexander and his men approached the mansion by the main road, making enough noise to attract attention. Meanwhile, Emma silently climbed up the steep trail at the back of the property. The climb was more difficult than she had imagined. Her lungs burned, her legs trembled, and with each step she expected to hear shouts or gunshots indicating she had been discovered. But she reached the top without incident, finding herself in the carefully maintained gardens of the mansion. The house was imposing, all lit up with visible movement through the windows. Emma crept to a side window and peeked inside. Vincent was in the main room, talking to 4 armed men. He seemed nervous, agitated. She activated the communicator Alexander had given her. "I can see the target, 5 men in the main room. Vincent seems to be expecting you." "Received," came Alexander's voice through the device. "Can you see anything else?" Emma moved carefully around the house, counting lit windows, trying to map the layout of the rooms. That's when she saw something that made her blood freeze. One of the second-floor windows tied to a chair was Ethan. "Alexander," she whispered into the communicator. "Ethan is here. Second floor east window. He's alive but tied up." There was a pause before Alexander responded. "This changes everything. Vincent is using your boyfriend as bait." "Bait for what?" "For you. He knows you're here, Emma. Knows you would come. From the back. He's waiting for you to enter the house." Emma's heart raced. It was a trap within a trap. "And now? Now you get out of there. Immediately." "I can't leave, Ethan." "Emma, don't be stubborn. It's exactly what Vincent wants." But she was already moving, looking for a way to enter the house. There was a back door that seemed less guarded. If she could get in without being seen... "Emma, answer, where are you?" She turned off the communicator. She knew Alexander would be furious, but she couldn't simply let Ethan die. Regardless of everything that had happened between her and Alexander, Ethan was innocent. He was suffering because of her choices. The back door was locked, but the locks were old. Emma had learned some questionable skills during her childhood. In the Bronx. After a few minutes, she managed to force the lock. The house inside was even more impressive than outside, but Emma had no time to appreciate the decoration. She silently climbed the stairs, following the layout she had memorized through the windows. The room where Ethan was being held was at the end of the corridor. She approached slowly, her heart beating so hard she was sure everyone in the house could hear it. Ethan was conscious when she entered the room. His eyes widened when he saw her. "Emma, what are you doing here? How did you find me?" "I came to get you out of here," she whispered, starting to untie the ropes that bound him to the chair. "You shouldn't have come. It's a trap. They said you would come, that you wouldn't be able to resist trying to save me. I know, but I couldn't leave you here." "Why?" Ethan asked, and there was pain in his voice. "After everything that happened, after you disappeared for days without explanation, why do you care about me?" Emma stopped working on the ropes and looked into his eyes. "Because you're a good person, Ethan, and because I love you." It was true, she realized, not in the same way she was beginning to love Alexander. That was fire, passion, danger. What she felt for Ethan was gentler, safer, but it was still love. Even after everything? Even after everything. That's when they heard footsteps in the corridor. Emma managed to untie the last rope and helped Ethan to stand up, but it was too late. The door opened and Vincent entered smiling. "Emma Sanders. Finally, we meet in person." Behind him entered 2 armed men. There was no escape. "Vincent," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, "what do you want?" "I want my dear brother to suffer. I want him to feel what it's like to lose everything that matters to him." Vincent approached, his eyes shining with a malice that made Emma shiver. "And you, my dear, are everything that matters to him." Outside, the sounds of a battle began. Alexander had discovered she was in the house and initiated the attack. But Emma knew it was now too late. Vincent had gotten exactly what he wanted. She was trapped, Ethan was in danger, and Alexander was walking straight into a deadly trap. The sounds of gunfire and shouts echoed through the mansion like a war symphony. Vincent seemed delighted with the chaos, walking around the room like a conductor leading a deadly orchestra. Emma and Ethan were backed against the wall, the 2 armed men watching them while Vincent spoke on the phone, coordinating the defense of the house. Your boyfriend is trembling, Vincent commented, hanging up the phone and approaching them. Not quite the hero you expected, is he, Emma? Leave him alone, she said, instinctively positioning herself in front of Ethan. He has nothing to do with this. Of course he does. He's proof that you're not as in love with my brother as he thinks. Vincent smiled cruelly. Tell me, when you were in bed with Alexander, did you think about this little boy? Emma felt the blood rush to her face, but she didn't respond. Beside her, Ethan stiffened. What is he talking about, Emma? Oh, she didn't tell you, Vincent laughed. Your little girlfriend spent a very interesting night with my brother. In exchange for money, of course, a true commercial transaction. That's not true, Ethan whispered, but his eyes showed he was beginning to understand. Ethan, I can explain, Emma began. Explain what? That you sold yourself to another man? That you betrayed me? I did it for my mother, for her treatment. And you had to spread your legs to get the money? Ethan's question was like a slap. Emma saw the disappointment and pain in his eyes and felt something die inside her. It wasn't just their relationship that was ending. It was the image he had of her, the purity he had always seen in her. What a touching scene, Vincent commented. But unfortunately, we'll have to interrupt this family conversation. Alexander has managed to enter the house, and I'm eager for our reunion. As if summoned, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor. The door opened violently, and Alexander entered like a storm, gun in hand, clothes dirty with blood and dirt. His eyes immediately found Emma's, and she saw relief and fury, mixing in his expression. Vincent, he said, keeping the gun pointed at his brother. Alexander, what a joy to see you. Vincent casually gestured to his men, who immediately pointed their guns at Emma and Ethan. As you can see, I have some special guests today. Let them go. Your fight is with me. Ah, but that's where you're wrong. My dear brother, my fight isn't just with you, it's with everything you represent, everything you have, everything you love. Vincent walked to Emma, running his fingers through her hair. And it seems you really love this little girl, don't you? Alexander took a step forward but stopped when Vincent pressed a pistol to Emma's head. Don't move. Let's have a civilized conversation. What do you want, Vincent? I want you to suffer as I suffered. I want you to lose everything as I lost. Vincent's voice was loaded with an old, venomous hatred. You know what our dear daddy told me the day he died? He said you were always the real son, that I was just a mistake he had to carry. Father was drunk. He said many cruel things to both of us. No, Alexander, he told the truth. And now, finally, I'm going to make you understand what it's like to be the rejected son. Vincent pressed the gun harder against Emma's head. Choose, brother, your life or hers. Alexander, no, Emma whispered. Don't do it. You heard the lady, Vincent laughed. She doesn't want you to sacrifice yourself for her. How touching. Because I love him, Emma said, looking directly at Alexander. And people who love each other don't let the other die. Love? Ethan shouted, finally exploding. You're saying you love this man? The man who bought you like a prostitute? Ethan, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You betrayed me, sold yourself to him, and now you say you love him? Ethan tried to stand up, but one of Vincent's men pushed him back to the floor. You're not the woman I thought you were. Ethan's words cut deep, but Emma kept her eyes fixed on Alexander. Maybe he's right. Maybe I'm not the woman I was anymore. But I've become someone better, someone stronger, someone capable of fighting for what she wants. Very moving, Vincent interrupted, but enough drama. Alexander, you have 10 seconds to decide. Your life or hers. It was then that Emma noticed something Vincent had missed. In the confusion of the conversation, Ethan had managed to pick up a piece of broken glass from the floor. He was behind, one of the armed men, and his eyes met hers for an instant. Despite all the hurt, despite all the betrayal he felt, Ethan still wanted to save her. 5 seconds, Vincent continued, counting. Emma made a choice. If Ethan was willing to risk his life for her, even after everything, she could at least give him the chance to be the hero he always wanted to be. Vincent, she said, drawing his attention, you want to know the Truth about that night with Alexander. Emma, don't, Alexander warned. The truth is that I liked it, she continued, ignoring the warning. I liked every minute. I liked how he touched me, how he made me feel. And when we finished, I wanted more. The lie came easily from her lips, and she saw the effect it caused. Ethan went pale. Vincent smiled triumphantly, and Alexander looked at her with an expression she couldn't decipher. You heard that, Ethan, Vincent laughed. Your little girlfriend is a... That's when Ethan attacked. The piece of glass cut deeply into the neck of the nearest armed man. In the chaos that followed, Alexander threw himself forward, knocking Vincent to the ground. Shots were fired, screams echoed through the room. Emma threw herself behind a table, trying to protect herself from the gunfire. When silence finally returned, she slowly stood up, her heart beating like a drum. Alexander was standing, breathing heavily, blood flowing from a cut on his arm. Vincent was on the floor, motionless, his eyes fixed on the ceiling. Ethan was leaning against the wall, pressing his hand against a wound in his shoulder, but alive. It's over, Alexander said, more to himself than to the others. But Emma knew it wasn't over. Not really, because now they had to deal with the consequences of everything that had happened, of all the choices they had made, of all the feelings that had been revealed in that blood-stained room. And she wasn't sure if any of them would emerge from this story whole. 6 months later, Emma walked through the tree-lined paths of Central Park, observing families enjoying the sunny Sunday. She was different, more confident, more elegant, with expensive clothes that were now part of her new reality. But her eyes still carried the same determination as always. Her mother had recovered completely. The treatment had been a success, and now Mrs. Sanders lived in a comfortable apartment on the Upper West Side, with a private caregiver and all the medical care she needed. Sometimes when Emma visited her, her mother asked about Alexander with a discreet smile on her lips, as if she knew secrets that her daughter was still discovering. Ethan had physically recovered from the gunshot wound, but emotionally, that was a different story. They had talked a few times after that terrible night, difficult conversations full of tears and words that couldn't be undone. He had tried to understand, tried to forgive, but in the end admitted he couldn't look at her without remembering everything that had happened. It wasn't hatred, he had explained. It was just sadness for the loss of the woman he thought he knew. You've become someone I don't recognize, he had said the last time they met. And maybe that's who you needed to become. But it's not the woman I fell in love with. Emma had cried that night, but it wasn't just sadness. It was also relief. Ethan represented her old life, her lost innocence, the frightened girl she had been. Losing him meant fully accepting who she had become. Alexander. They had spent weeks dancing around each other after Vincent's death. He insisted she deserved better, that she should use the money he had put in an account for her and start life anew, away from all that. She insisted she didn't want a different life if it wasn't with him. You don't understand what I am, he had said one night, when they finally met at a discreet restaurant downtown. I'm not a good man, Emma. I never will be. And you don't understand what I've become, she had replied. I'm no longer the naive girl you met in that jewelry store, and I don't want to be. It had taken 2 more months to admit they couldn't stay apart. 2 months of unanswered phone calls, of casual encounters that weren't casual, of sleepless nights thinking about each other. The first time they slept together after everything that had happened was different from the first night. There was no transaction, no desperation, no power being exercised over the other. There were just 2 adults who had chosen to be there, who had gone through hell together and decided they wanted to try to build something on the other side. Now, Emma had finished her nursing course and started working at a private clinic that Alexander had helped finance. It wasn't charity. She had made it clear she would work for her salary like any other employee. But it was a job she loved, taking care of people who needed her, using the skills she had developed caring for her own mother. They lived together in Alexander's apartment, but she had insisted on keeping her own space in the smaller apartment they had bought in her name. Some nights she slept there, especially when she needed to think, when the intensity of the relationship with him became too much to process. Because even after 6 months, even with all the love that had grown between them, there were still moments when Emma wondered if she was living her own life or a version of it that Alexander had bought and molded. "You're overthinking again," a familiar voice said behind her. Emma turned and smiled to see Alexander approaching. He was more casual than in the early days, dark jeans and a simple white shirt, but still radiated that natural authority that had impressed her from their first meeting. "How did you know I'd be here?" "Because this is where you come when you need to think." He approached, putting his arms around her waist. "And because I had a GPS installed in your car." "You didn't do that." "I didn't," he smiled, and it was the genuine smile that she had learned to distinguish from the calculated one. "But I seriously considered the possibility." They walked in silence for a few minutes, observing the people around them. This was how it was between them now. Moments of peace interspersed with intense passion, deep discussions about the future, and always, always, the awareness of everything they had gone through to get here. "Alexander," Emma finally said, "sometimes I wonder if I'm really happy, or if I've just convinced myself that I am." He stopped walking, turning to face her. "And what's the answer?" "I don't know. How can anyone know if feelings are genuine when they started in such a transactional way?" Alexander was silent for a long moment, and she could see that he too struggled with the same questions. "You want to know what I think?" he finally said. "I think it doesn't matter how we started. What matters is who we choose to be now, every day." "And who do you choose to be?" "I choose to be a man who loves you without wanting to control you, who respects your decisions even when I don't agree with them, who works every day to deserve you." He touched her face gently. "And you? Who do you choose to be?" Emma thought about the question, looking at the park around them, at the families, at the children running free. "I choose to be a woman who isn't afraid of her own power, who doesn't apologize for making difficult choices, who fights for what she wants, even when it's complicated." "And what do you want, Emma?" She smiled, and for the first time in months, the answer came without hesitation. "I want you. I want our confusing, complicated life. I want to continue becoming who I am by your side." Alexander kissed her right there in the middle of the park as the sun set behind the trees, and Emma knew finally that she had found her answer. It didn't matter how her story had begun. What mattered was how she chose to continue it. 2. Years later, when they married in a small ceremony with just Emma's mother and a few close friends, she wore around her neck a golden chain with the emerald ring she had inherited from her father. Not as a symbol of submission, but as a reminder of where she had started and how far she had come. And when Alexander placed the wedding band on her finger, whispering promises of love and partnership, Emma finally understood that sometimes true love doesn't come from fairy tales. Sometimes it comes from two imperfect people who decide to build something beautiful from the ruins of who they were before. The frightened girl who had sold her father's ring had died in that jewelry store 6 months